What up, guys? It's Dom, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going to be going over Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass, released in 2010, written and directed by Matthew Vaughn. So this is an origin story of Dave Lazevsky, who comes up with a good question. Why aren't there actual superheroes? I mean, all you have to do is put on a costume and go out and fight crime. And he realized maybe he should be the one to do it. But either way, let's get into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. Plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? Definitely. I mean, I love the plot of this movie. I love that Dave started this movement that all you need is a mask and the desire to help people to become a hero. Because after he did it, all these other characters did it, which was really cool because it wasn't just his origin story, it was all of theirs. It was Kick Ass's origin story, Bad Daddy's, and Hit Girl's origin story, and the Red Mist. But I'll tell you why I don't really care about that character later. But either way, it was all of their origin story, which is cool and unique. Usually in a superhero movie, you follow one character that's it's his or hers origin story, and that is it. You don't really get an origin story for other characters. But this one was supposed to be. It's the entire movie is about multiple characters and how they unravel. And it was cool to follow along. It definitely kept you enthralled in the movie. So I thought they did a really good job with this plot. Attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? I mean, yeah, as I said in the plot, the premise is awesome. I love the idea of every kid wants to be a superhero. He actually did it, and you get to see what would happen if you were to become a superhero as just a regular high schooler. Obviously, no superpowers, no training. You just put on a suit and go fight people. I mean, that's the whole premise. And honestly, I love it. I'm glad they chose that. It was super entertaining. There was never a boring part of this movie because of it. And let's move away from Kick-Ass for a second and talk about Big Daddy. So he is just Batman basically, but so brutal. Like if you took Batman and Deadpool and combined it into one character, throw him on a screen, that's Big Daddy. And I'm glad they chose Nicolas Cage for the actor as well because he did a phenomenal job. He sounded badass. He looked badass when they were fighting. The way that he can like change his voice gave real Batman vibes as well. And honestly, there was so much brutality in this movie. So if that's not your thing, I wouldn't watch it. But I love that. Like especially like in the Deadpool movies where it's also comedic but still really brutal. That's how this movie was, and I loved that. There was so many times I just sat up in on my couch, just making sure I'm just like so paying attention because I this scene was so enthralling. So definitely entertaining the whole way through. Theme. What message or truth is the movie trying to convey? I would say the message is pretty clear, but of course this is a interesting topic because different people can see different messages or not a message at all in the different movies. But me personally, I think the message is that anyone can be under the mask. The same message that Spider-Man sends, that the reason why Stanley made Spider-Man completely covered in his face, because anyone can be the hero. It doesn't matter who you are. As long as you have the desire to help people, you can be a hero. And I think that was a good message to convey. Dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversations? Now, it definitely felt real, which was good. They all sounded like high schoolers, which is how they were supposed to sound. So they nailed that. Now, there was a lot of cringy moments in this movie. Now, I'm not going to blame them because they. Actually, I will kind of blame them because it didn't need that much cringe. Cringe in movies is okay as long as it's limited. There was too much in this one. Like it was still a great movie. I'm not gonna. It wasn't enough cringe to completely pull you out of it. Just when Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Red Mist, when he talked, it just pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie, it really triggered me. I was I, I don't know if it's only because I see him as Mick Lovin from Superbad, but it bothered me a lot. And honestly, it pulled me out of the movie just a few times whenever he was talking, just because I kept thinking of his other character. But I mean, that's not him to blame. I mean, he did such a bang up job in Superbad that I mean, that's all you can think about. That's his iconic character. So, other than that, the dialogue was great. Acting. Are the characters convincing? Now, other than Christopher Mintz-Plasse playing Red Mist, I think they did a bang up job with these actors. I think they chose the perfect actors for these roles, and they did a great job portraying those characters. Now, I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm hating so much on Christopher Mintz, but I can't unsee it. I can't unsee Mick Lovin every single time that I'm going to watch this movie. So I'll try to stop talking about it now, but I just had to get it all out there. But either way, the actors in this movie were Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kick-Ass and Dave Lazevsky, Clark Duke as Marty, Evan Peters as Todd, Lindsay Fonseca as Katie, Sophie Wu as Erica. Now, they did a great job playing the teenage high school friend group of this movie. Honestly, I wouldn't have chosen any other actors. They did a bang up job. They sounded just like high schoolers. They looked like them. They acted like them. They just did a phenomenal job. Some other actors were Chloe Grace Moretz as Hit Girl slash Mindy, and Nicolas Cage as Big Daddy slash Damon. Now, Nicolas Cage, he's a seasoned actor. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to make a character exactly how they're supposed to be. And he made Big Daddy like Batman. And that's a great way of doing it. That's how he should have done it. The costume resembles Batman clearly. He's just Batman, but more brutal. And that's all you really needed. I expected nothing less, nothing more. Now, Chloe, as Hit Girl, she also did a good job. Now, I'm not going to blame her for the costume because the costume was kind of but she did a great job as acting like Damon's daughter. And I also wouldn't change that role at all. She played it perfectly. They even looked alike in the movie. They actually looked like father and daughter, which sometimes it's like, I can tell that you're just acting as a daughter because you're not actually their daughter. But for some reason in this one, it looked spot on. So I'll give that to them. Now, the bad guy in this movie, Frank D'Amico, played by Mark Strong, he did a great job. And honestly, I'm not surprised because I saw him play Dr. Savannah in Shazam, and he did a good job there too. Now, I'll talk about one more, and that is Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Red Mist slash Chris D'Amico. Now, I'm not going to talk about it because I already talked about it through this whole video. McLovin, of course. But other than that, I just feel like he didn't look enough like his dad in the movie in order to really like pull me like, okay, that is your son. You want to take over the family business. He also didn't act like he did, even though he kept saying it. He kind of was nonchalant about the whole thing. And his dialogue, of course, really bothered me. And not only because he just sounds like McLovin straight from Superbad, but just the way he was reading his lines was kind of iffy to me. But other than that, I mean, the acting was amazing. Cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? So there's a cinematic scene in this movie that I want to go over, and that is one of the heroes defeats a whole bunch of bad guys in a warehouse, first cuts the lights, throws down a strobe light, and the entire scene is played out frame by frame whenever the light turns on and off. So you only see when the light's on, you only see what happens. You don't see what happens when the light's off, which is really cool. Because at first you see them attacking some guys, and then the light turns off, the light turns on, the guys are dead or knocked out or just in a completely different place, and then they're on the other side of the room. That was really cool. That was a really cool way of using lighting. I think that honestly, if you talk about cinematography for this movie, that should be the first scene that pops into your mind if you've watched it. And about the wardrobe, I mean, Big Daddy's suit is awesome because it's just Batman. Of course, I'm gonna like that. Kick-Ass's suit, his is clean and simple, and I do really like that. And I do like the colors. The green and the yellow definitely does hit. Now, Red Mists and Hit Girls. I don't think I think the reason I don't like their suits is the wigs, because I didn't like that part of their costume was the wig. I feel like if they just had their regular hair and just wore the costume and the mask, it would have been better. But I mean, I can't really blame them. There wasn't like CGI to make a really cool suit, so they just worked with what they had. And honestly, it was passable. It wasn't terrible. It's just not as cool as Kick-Asses and Big Daddies. Editing. This is all about the pacing of the movie. So Kick-Ass is an hour and 57 minutes long, and honestly, that's a fair length. I would say it could be a little shorter. Some scenes could have been removed, but the problem is I feel like that would take away from the story. So I feel like an hour 57 is fine where it is. Soundtrack. So the soundtrack was nothing special. There was a few good songs like Can't Go Back and Make Me Want to Die. But when Bad Reputation started playing during one of the fight scenes, it gave me extreme Deadpool vibes. Like it looked like you just took one of the scenes out of Deadpool, put it in this movie, replaced Deadpool with Hit Girl, and that was the scene. Like that was really cool. I'm glad they added that. And honestly, since the rest of the soundtrack wasn't that bad, I'd say this is this is a pretty good soundtrack. Directing. So Matthew Vaughn is the director, and he is the one that took these past 8 essential elements and put them together to make a good movie. And honestly, he did a bang up job. I think he did really good. And I'm not surprised because he's done 8 other movies besides this one. And they were all really good too. And they were Layer Cake, Stardust, X-Men First Class, which debatably is one of the best X-Men movies, Kingsman The Secret Service, Kingsman The Golden Circle, Nike Awaken the Phantom, The Kingsman, and Argyle. And honestly, all of those movies are pretty good, some of them really good. So I'm not surprised he didn't nail Kick-Ass to a T. Honestly, he did a bang up job. Time. Does it stand the test of time? I mean, absolutely. 14 years later, and this movie is still somewhat relevant. I mean, I've been wanting to watch this movie for a while, and I've known about this movie for a while, and it still comes into mind 14 years after its release. So I'd say, yeah, it stood the test of time pretty well. Reviews. Let's talk about the reviews. So Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 77%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it an 81%, and IMDb gave it a 76%. Now, I have to agree most with the audience because I wanted to give it a hard 80, just an 8 out of 10, 80%. I think that's fair. I think it's a really good movie, and 80% out of every movie of all time, that's pretty good. Now, I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm not surprised because it was just right up my alley. But I understand why the critics wouldn't have given it a higher rating. Because, of course, the comedy aspect, I talked about this when I went over Megamind. Comedy is very subjective. It depends on the person. You aren't always going to find a joke that hits every audience member. Some people aren't going to like the comedy at all, or some people are going to love all the part of the comedy. So that is understandable why they didn't put it higher than 77 or 76. But I mean, that's why the audience did give it an 80. So I think that's pretty fair. Rankings. All right, you guys can calm down. The part you've all been waiting for is finally here. We're going to rank Kick-Ass in its year, decade, and in all time. So let's just get right to it. In 2010, it's going to fall second, going to be right underneath Megamind. Those are the only 2 movies I have done for that year. I just think the jokes in Megamind hit more home for me. I enjoyed myself more watching Megamind, especially with its comedy. But I feel like the action sequences were on par with Megamind anyway. So in the 2010s, it's going to be a similar deal because Megamind is going to be first, Kick-Ass is going to be second, but SWAT Firefight is going to fall right third underneath Kick-Ass. I just think Kick-Ass is a better movie in every aspect to SWAT Firefight. Better action, better comedy, more enthralling story arc. So I'm not surprised that that's where I'm going to be putting it. And now in all time, it's going to also fall second. It's going to be under Megamind and above Beautiful Disaster. Now, Beautiful Disaster was a good movie. I just feel it had a little more cringe than Kick-Ass did. And Kick-Ass, with it being a superhero movie, having a lot of action scenes, having also good comedy, I think it just deserves the second place spot compared to Beautiful Disaster. That's all I have for Kick-Ass. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and don't forget to comment what movie you want me to review next. I hope you have an amazing day.